All right, everybody, we are live for another episode of the Remodelers on the Rise podcast. I say live because we're recording it live. We usually post in our Remodelers Community Facebook group. If you go to remodelerscommunity.com, you can become part of that. It also goes live on my Facebook page and on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Jordan, we might have tens of thousands of people that will be dialing in. Are you nervous?
Not at all. Bring it on.
Good answer. Good answer. So I have Jordan Smith with MT Copeland with me. And I usually don't do this, but when I read your bio, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to read his bio, and then I'm going to let you introduce yourself and maybe say a little bit about MT Copeland. And then what we're going to talk about today is this topic of training, whether it was 1982 or 97 or 2022 or 2036. Guess what, remodelers? Training your field team and training your office team is going to be one of the hats that you wear and something that you need to prioritize. And it is a topic that I find with all of my remodeling clients, most of my remodeling clients, it's something that's like, okay, we're gearing up, we're going to do some training, and they do it a little bit, and then it kind of slides under the radar. And then, oh, we're going to do this. It's often not well planned, consistent, and solid. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me read Jordan's bio. He is the head of education at MT. That's Mary Tom MT Copeland. Jordan's the CEO and founder of Smith House and Company, a design and build firm in Austin, Texas. And he got his start in construction with Matt Reisinger. Tell the people who Matt Reisinger is.
Yeah, Matt Reisinger is a big YouTube builder that builds here in Austin.
And you worked with Matt for a couple of years when you were getting your start.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
What's his YouTube page?
It's The Build Show. If you look up the build, if you type in The Build Show on Google, it'll come up. He's probably the biggest new construction YouTuber there is. He's been doing it, and he's been doing that for 15 years now.
Wow. And your bio says you taught him everything that he knows. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. Oh. Exactly right. Okay. No, not at all. No, I've been following him on YouTube actually, and I'm an engineer. And my wife and I had built several of our own homes and remodeled several more. And we're like, this is what we do all the time anyway. Let's do this for a living. But instead of learning just through the School of Hard Knocks, I thought it'd be better to learn from one of the best. And so I approached Matt, and he hired me, and I worked with him for a couple of years running the steel and carpentry crews, and then broke off and doing my own thing now.
Very cool. Jordan's a welder by trade, spent 10 years in the oil and gas industry, programming robots to weld together. He's an active member of the American Welding Society and holds a degree in material joints engineering. Pretty unique. So what else would you add about yourself? And then maybe share a little bit about what MT Copeland is, and then we'll get into questions related to training.
Yeah. So about myself, there's not much more to tell. I'm an engineer, and like I said, I've always been entrepreneurial, but with manufacturing, it's such a large barrier to entry from a financial standpoint that starting a fab shop was seemed like a pretty big jump. And then two, my wife, Veronica, we like working together. We wanted to do something together. She has no desire in being doing anything in fab shops, but she really likes designing and building houses. So we decided to do that together. And as we were working with more and more people, as our business was growing, one of the frustrations that we had is I'm big on training. I've got a YouTube channel where I show people what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But one of the frustrations that I have with my own crews is I have to redo that every single time, or I have to send them on a YouTube wild goose chase to find what I'm talking about. And so 2.5 years ago or so, I started working with the people that have formed MT Copeland to build training specifically for builders and remodelers.
Excellent. So that's how you kind of came together. So most of your time is being spent as a design build remodeler with a little side hustle of the training side.
Exactly. I'm still actively building, and I'm actively shooting videos for Copeland, as well as doing things like this on the marketing side with Copeland.
Awesome. Excellent. All right. So talking about training, how does a really busy remodeler carve out time to ensure that their employees are training and are getting trained regularly? What's your hot take on that?
So it's hard. I'm not going to lie and be like, you just got to do it, but you sort of just have to do it, right? There's two views of this. Like, we're too busy to train, but if you invest the time in training, you're going to be more efficient and more profitable because everything will be hitting on all cylinders.
So yeah, pause there. So you're telling me
Yeah.
if I sit down with 4 of my carpenters out in the field and we do a 2-hour training, that's 8 labor hours. That sucker's costing me $400+ maybe, let's say, in cost, plus the opportunity cost of not producing. Let
Yep.
alone if I pay somebody like MT Copeland some bucks maybe for some video training, or if I do it in house. You're telling me that those 4 hours spent, are you pretty much guaranteeing me that that is going to be ROI positive long term?
So there's so many variables in there. It's hard to,
Yeah.
it's not going to, it's hard to guarantee. But we do have case studies where we're working with large remodelers who have their own in-house training and have utilized our videos. And the reason that they train is because they see that type of ROI
Yeah.
positive impact. The second thing I'll say is that it's very time consuming if you're doing everything yourself. If you are doing this is what, why, and how you should do it, and then you're doing the hands-on as well. Our goal is to be 50% of that and let the what, how, and why be offline. You don't have to do it on the job site.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this in a second, but I think that's a good idea to pay your employees while they're getting trained to do a better job for you. And I
And
would argue that looking at MT Cope at this big remodelers results, they're saving like $8,000 per employee with video training versus not video training. And to them, not training is not an option. They're just too big of an operation to just rely on market forces to produce good people. They're going out and having to find people and then giving them the skills to do the work that they need to get done.
yeah, I was being a little dramatic with the guaranteed ROI, but the reason I wanted to even kind of make a deal about that is, yes, we have to realize that those hours invested, especially if you're thoughtful with it, if you're actually doing some solid training, your return on it may not come in the first week or the first month, but over time, the skills and the improvements and the efficiencies and the productivity should be ROI positive. Now, is that going to take 6 months? Is that going to take a year? To be determined. We'd have to watch that closely, but we have to get it through our heads that taking the time to slow down and train will speed us up, will make us a stronger business. That should be a takeaway and a reminder to anybody listening to this. Okay.
And
So how,
there's
go ahead, please.
also the soft costs that are hard, or not even soft costs, but just the ones that are a little bit more nebulous. In one of the main reasons that people leave jobs, not just in construction industry, but just like across all industries, one of the main reasons that people leave is because they don't feel like they're being invested in. So that doesn't mean that they're getting paid $1 more every 6 months, every year. That's a different discussion. But the being invested in, being a meaningful part of the team, and having their skills improved
Yeah.
is one of the best ways to retain employees. And if you're not doing that, and you have to look at your turnover rate as part of lost time, then yeah, I'll put the guarantee
ROI,
of like it will cost a lot less to keep your people and keep improving their skills and have to start from scratch every year, every 2 years.
Yeah, I like that. So what's another way that remodelers, busy remodelers, can carve out the time to make sure this is happening?
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about video training is you are able to do this in a non-linear fashion. So you don't have to have everybody shut down, come together for a 2-hour training session to where that week or that month takes a huge hit on training. Because it's video, each person can do it at their own pace. I'd say at their own time. Again, we'll talk about this later. I would pay for it, but it doesn't have to be everybody coming off of all of the different job sites and coming to a centralized office and doing this. They're able to do it on their job sites as they go. And then you can spread that training. I can't sit down and watch me talk for 2.5 hours and retain 2.5 hours worth of information. It's just too much. So all of our training is broken down into these 9-minute, 12-minute segments. So if you do 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week over the course of a month, you've gotten through a complete course. And it's the same money, but it's spread out over multiple jobs, over multiple pay periods, and it doesn't have that huge gut wrenching impact of like, man, I'm losing $400. I'm losing 400. I'm investing $400 right now today on training. You're spreading that $400 over the complete month. And if you do it right, at least for my crews, right before lunch and right before the end of the day are soft periods. It's like, and these are good crews. I'm not saying that they're screwing off and waiting for the lunch bell to ring, but it's like, I can't just jump into the next thing. I've got to start shutting down and cleaning up so that tomorrow I can be as productive as I can be. Well, just squeeze it in, move that shutdown time from, let's pretend it's 4:45, move that up to 4:35 and put 10 minutes of training on there, and maybe just do it 2 to 3 times a week. And you'll be amazed at how much course you can cover.
I like it. So if I'm a remodeler listening to this, for you guys listening to this and gals listening to this, he started it by saying, look, it's hard. It's hard to find the time to do it. You just heard a little bit of a tip, something to try. You're hearing some ideas of, when everybody doesn't have to be there at the same time, it gives us some more flexibility to be consistent with it. You just heard a tip of, just take 10 minutes. And you know what you can also have them do is text you or text the group. Here's a takeaway I had from the training I did today. Get people to buy into it. The biggest thing I'm also hearing that everybody needs to hear is it's about consistency. Don't be the leader. Don't be the owner of the business who gets all fired up because they listen to the Remodelers on the Rise show where Jordan and Kyle fired them about training, and then get all riled up and schedule one training and then do nothing for 6 months. You have to make this part of the fabric of your business, of this is what we're about. We are always investing in training, sometimes in small little nuggets of time and sometimes in taking a full half day for more on site. So those are some good takeaways already. And we're only couple minutes in here. Next question, Jordan. What does a good training program look like? We may have touched on a couple of those, but what else comes to mind for that?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the scale and type of business. So our building training covers everybody from big production home builders all the way down to, a couple of guys or a guy doing remodels, and they're the seller doer and they're self-performing everything. So really depends on what size and what scope of work that you're doing. For the large guys, they're much more structured because they already have training programs in place. We haven't found $1 billion builder or hundreds of millions of dollar builder that doesn't have training, that they say, oh, training's not important. So back to your is it worth it? I don't know. All the guys who make the big bucks, not that we all want to do that kind of work, but the ones who are reporting back to Wall Street, they see it as
there's a correlation
to train. Yeah. So their training will look a little bit different, where they have learning management systems already built, and our courses get plugged directly into their learning management systems, and it's a big production for them, all the way down to the mid-sized guys who, again, you're maybe running 2-3 crews and they're on different sites, so you can't bring them all in. Video really helps on that, and maybe you can have a consistent monthly meeting where you're going over the top things learned from their individual courses, all the way down to the really small ones where maybe it's a lunch and learn. Maybe everybody is on the same job site at the same time, and while you're breaking for lunch, you throw it up on a computer and you all 4 or 5 of you watch the same thing 3 days a week to push the training forward. But you hit the nail on the head when you said consistency. Across all of those things, it's this ongoing education and getting better. I shoot these videos myself on some of them, like the blueprint reading course, and I put a lot of work studying that blueprint reading course. Here it is 2 years later, and I just watched a section of it as I was sending it to somebody else to show what we do. And I was like, oh man, that's a really good point. Like I should, and it was me teaching it and just rewatching it again. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But that's really insightful. So even having stuff that you think everybody knows reiterated, we just all forget those fine details, and having it consistently is key.
Yeah, that's good. And even going back to something you mentioned earlier of, something that's important now and will be continue to be important, if not more important in the future, is retention of our team. And when you are working for somebody that doesn't take time to invest in you, to improve your skill set, that is one of the reasons people jump ship. They don't see any
Yep.
growth potential. They're not growing in their skills and their trade and their craftsmanship. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about training and how do we invest the time and energy towards it. Okay, excellent. So we touched on, I think I want to maybe focus on the second part of this question, because as far as how many hours a week, a month, I don't know. Why don't you pick something and decide, depending on your team, depending on what you're doing. Are you going to do a once a month? Are you going to do ongoing video training with a half day review? Are you going to do it every quarter? Just one thing every quarter? I don't know. Pick a frequency, what feels good and solid and will move the needle, and stick with it for 3, 6, 9 months. Make some adjustments as you go. There's not one right way to do it, and depending on a lot of factors of your company, their skill level, etc., you need to decide and make some decisions on frequency. But to this other part, this is a question that comes up with a lot of my clients of, all right, I'm buying this training, I'm trying to help them improve, and I need to pay them for it? Yes or no? So, do you pay them for their time to do the training? Should this be done only during work hours, or can we ask people to be consuming this training after hours? What's been your experience and some feedback on that?
So this is my personal view is that you should pay for people's training, especially if it's not killing production in the fact that you're having to send them to a JCO or you're having to send them out to somewhere to do it. If they can do it on site, I'm a big proponent of paying for training. It makes people feel more valued. It's a you want me to do a better job for you, which is great. I'm willing to do that, but the exchange is I want to be paid for the time that I'm spending to make the company more profitable. The inverse can be looked at like, look, here's a training, I'm paying for it, but you take it on your own. If I'm the employee and I'm a go-getter, I'm going to be like, man, this is fantastic. This is a great opportunity for me to learn. But guess what? Once I learn that and once I get really good at it, I'm going to feel like more of a free agent because I put in the time to do this
And the
on my
investment.
own. I invested my own time and resources to learn this. And now, once I know it, either you, Mr. Employer, are going to pay me more for my skills, or I'm going to go find somebody else who will, versus this is what we pay, this is what you do, and we're going to help all of us do a better job as we go. It builds much more camaraderie
I like that.
instead of a tit for tat mentality of like, well, I'll do this, but I won't pay for that
Yeah.
type of
Yeah, I
scheme.
think I think that's where we go, is like we quickly justify it, or somebody that's going that route. Look, I'm providing this training. This is making them better. I don't need to pay them, but you're taking it a little bit higher level and saying, what is the emotional impact of that? How serious do they take it when it is on their own time? So I liked your answer to that. And then we got our first comment. Thank you, Mr. Paul J. McManus. He said, I think training costs should be part of your labor burden. So when you're calculating your employee labor burden, and you've got the pay, the taxes, the work hours for vacation, paid holidays, workers' comp. There should be a line that says training. Now the question is, how many hours of training over the course of the year are you going to put in your labor burden? And let's plan for that. Let's budget for that. Let's get that in the employee labor burden. So Paul, yeah, that's a good answer. And it's, again, I'm going back to challenging remodelers listening to this. If you actually went through and tracked how many hours of training you provided your team so far this year, here we are on August 30th, 2022. How many hours have you done training? I have a sneaky feeling, just like you have a correlation, Jordan, that you were sharing between these bigger companies that are growing and that put a priority to training, that the companies that have teams that aren't improving and growing in their skill set, there is a direct correlation to the amount of time they're putting towards training. Hello, no duh, right? So keep that in mind. It is a wonderful thing to be able to increase the amount of training you're providing your team. There's going to be positive ROI to that. Okay, I like it. Jordan, you're a sharp guy. We've never met before. I'm like, all right, they recommended Jordan to come on here, and you are sharing some wonderful little golden nuggets so far. Before I go on to that next question, was there anything else in the previous questions that you wanted to reiterate or that you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to?
No,
All right,
no,
we're going to keep
you're
rocking then.
rocking and rolling.
Good. So how do you approach taking an inexperienced carpenter? You mentioned earlier, and it made me think of Justin Kolich with Ann Arbor Modeling. The way that I first heard about MT Copeland is Justin is a client of yours, and Justin's part of my Remodelers VIP club, and he was sharing with the group about kind of what you said of, these carpenters aren't just growing on trees. Sometimes we got to go out and make them. We got to find people that have an interest, that don't have the skills yet, and train them step by step into skilled carpenters. And I think my prognosis, if I was a prognosticator, would be in the years ahead. I think that's going to continue to be more and more important. People that are done working behind a desk, done with this career, and are looking for something that is new and exciting for them. So, how do we take an inexperienced carpenter, an apprentice, and over time transform them into a more skilled carpenter or a lead carpenter? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I look more historically at this question to sort of get a starting point. So the concept of a master and apprentice, especially in carpentry, traditionally, and we're talking like thousands of years ago, that's how the knowledge was transferred
Yeah.
from one generation to the next. For a multitude of reasons, we've abandoned that, and I'm not saying that it's all necessarily bad, but that training section is now missing. It's like, how do we get these skills implemented? With a hands-on skill like carpentry, you've got to have the tools in your hand. Like there's no, I liken it to like learning an instrument. I can watch a guy play guitar for 40 hours. And unless I pick up the guitar, I'm never going to learn how to play the guitar. The first time that I pick up the guitar, it's going to sound terrible, right? But that versus just getting a guitar and I've never seen somebody play it. I don't know what it's supposed to sound like. I don't know how you hold it. I know nothing about it. It's going to be a very frustrating process for me to get proficient versus watching somebody like this is how to do it and then getting hands-on. So I see it as I sort of make the analogy of like classroom and lab work, right? So in the class, we learn what we're doing, we're learning why we're doing it, and we're learning how it's to be done, right? And we know what the finished product looks like in our head, and we know the steps to get there. And then you get in the field, and now when I'm looking over the shoulder of maybe our lead carpenter, he really knows what he's doing, and he's great at carpentry, and he's pretty good at running a job, but either he doesn't have time or he's not really good at explaining what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, now with a video portion of that or an offline portion of that where the student already knows, the what, how, and why, now he can look over the shoulder and say, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I know what he's doing there. Next, he's going to do this. And it all starts making sense. And then when they get their hands on the tools, they're much more proficient from the beginning. And yeah, it's going to, just like picking up a guitar, it's going to suck the first time, right? It's not going to be this beautiful work, but they'll at least recognize it's like, this is bad work, right? It's not somebody else telling them like, that's not what that's supposed to look like. So having been able to see it one time all the way through, taught by a master, and then showing up on site to get your hands dirty and your hands on the tools
It's both.
It's both.
Yeah. So even that effectiveness, I liked how you said it, of a little bit of the who and the why and the what of online training, and then the in-person, needs to be there to learn the skills. Another thing, do you think there is a dream that more people, is there something that more people have this dream that never comes to fruition than people that want to play the guitar and never really learn it? Like everybody's around the campfire and they're like, I want to be that guy. That guy just sits down there, he strums, he is so cool. They see the guitarist up there doing it, and everybody dreams of it, and then they have a couple lessons, and then it always fizzles. Is there something that people more, maybe running a marathon, maybe writing a book, but man, the guitar thing is big.
The guitar, I'm telling you, I'm a musician, and I'm on Craigslist right now, and it's just it's a bloodbath in a good way for me. But like all of these entry-level instruments that I'm buying for my kids are a fraction of the price because COVID, everybody went crazy, bought guitars, bought ukuleles. They're like, we're going to learn this instrument. And now
They're like,
maybe not. And so you get them for half price and they've never been touched.
there you have it. Paul said, as far as training goes, it's about $1 an hour for us. That's an interesting mark. Paul said, I would also like to see vendors and manufacturers invest more training for subs and installers. That's a good message, and something that you can kind of put up the food chain to those manufacturers, to your vendors. That's good. Jim said, we have a great trade school in our area, Williamson College of the Trades. Excellent. And getting involved there and figuring out how you can help and contribute there is really key. The way I think of how are we going to figure out this fact that for every 10 65-year-old carpenters that are winding down, there's one coming up. I don't know if that stat is exactly correct. 42% of all statistics are made up. But it's something like that, and how are we going to do it? It literally takes everybody involved in the industry to get active in it, to get involved in it. The other thing that came to my mind when you were going through kind of that training program of the online plus the hands-on is we realize that when we really understand and know our numbers, it makes us a more profitable, strong business. We know that when we figure out how to start charging for design and development and focus more of our work on paying projects, that's very helpful. We know that if we have a really strong final 5% on a project and we finish projects strong, that that has a big impact on our business. But think about, I've very rarely heard a remodeler say, what I'm super excited about, I'm going to have the best stinking training program around for my existing team. People are going to hear about it, and the people that are attracted to that are going to want to work with me. What a wonderful long-term goal and strategic advantage to really hone in, like you do your sales process, like you do your financials and P&L, like you do your marketing, to the training side. So I wanted to plant that for maybe a couple people listening to this. Paul also said the issue with trade schools is you only learn about 5% of what you really need to know. It takes 5 or more years to gain any real competence in most trades. Hence, when you get that first project or the first job, that's when you really start learning. I've said that as well. For some reason, my 16-year-old son threw this back at me the other day. I think he was trying to razz his mom a little bit. Like, do I really have to go to college? He's like, Dad said that, he graduated, he got his degree, but it wasn't until he got his first job is when he really started to learn things. But it's true. Same thing in the trades, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. And I will say about trade school, like, we're working with trade schools, right? Trade schools they use a curriculum, right? So they get a book or they do something to be able to teach the students. And we talk to so many instructors who love our videos because it gives them something to do. A 9-minute presentation, they show the screen for 9 minutes. The kids are engaged. They see something. Then the professor makes his marks of like, this is really what we're focusing on. And then they're out into the shop actually doing the work. Great. So like, we're hugely supportive of trade schools, training programs. It's a frustration for me when I call people saying, hey, we've got this training, like, oh, well, we have our training in-house. It's like, great. You are exactly the clients that we want to be talking with because we want to make your training more efficient. I think they're a lot closer to the answer than the people who you call and say, we've got this training. And they're like, oh, we don't do training. That's a whole nother mountain we got to climb.
Yeah. Yeah. So give me, in the interest of time, give me one training that you guys have in your little Rolodex of training that is really impactful for kind of remodelers. Which one comes to mind that you've gotten a lot of feedback on?
I would say blueprint reading. That's our top selling course. And I think it's because it's at a nexus of a few different paths. One, maybe you're a carpenter and you're really good at.
Hey, are you just saying that because you're the instructor on that?
That's exactly why I'm saying it. It's taught by the best instructor on our staff. No, it's a great topic. We've got people who have been building and now they're going up into management and they're having to distill these prints into like, this is what the team and I have to be doing. You have people who are coming from different industries. Maybe you've been in banking and you're really good at management, and now you're running a construction crew and you've just never seen them before. Or maybe you're in the office and people are saying, hey, can you get a request for information from the designer on this detail? And the office person's like, I don't know. I can pass you off, but I can't help in any way because I don't know how to read the blueprint. So I'd say blueprint reading is sort of a no-brainer home run.
Yeah. And even that idea of, okay, we want to train our office manager to be able to understand this more. All right, let's schedule some times. Let's schedule an hour here. Let's schedule an hour there. Or we can buy this course, really get him or her going with it. And then all of a sudden, I can work off of that, but now she's already has a little bit more of a working knowledge. What's one or two that would get the attention of remodelers courses wise?
Yeah, so we've got a painting course that's taught by Tyler Grace, and I don't know whether you follow Tyler on he's one of the modern craftsman guys on that podcast, and he just does phenomenal work across the board. But he does a painting course, and I've done a lot of remodels and a lot of paint, and I was taking notes the whole time and just like, wow, that's a good tip. That's a good tip. That's it's a really good one. Drywall with Lydia Crowder, Drywall Shorty. She has a fantastic one from a project management standpoint too, because she starts at before the rock shows up on your site. This is the walk around that you need to do on the framing to make sure that all of the details are correct before the crew shows up, because you'll be wasting so much time if they don't have the right framing, dead wood, and corners that allow this to go in.
Give me a couple. Even for me as a business coach, as you're saying that, I'm like, dude, that type of training to be able to provide to a project manager, to be able to provide to a lead carpenter. Give me a couple more that come to mind.
Yeah, so we have a cabinetry course that shows exactly how cabinets are put together. We've got an attitude course. It's called Sharp, or How to Succeed on the Job, and it's just soft skills. It's like be self-starting, honest, adaptable, and positive, results-driven and positive. Forgot my own acronym, right? It's just like, this is how to be a good employee and a good employer, just a good person, right?
See, everybody's taking notes of like, ooh, I like that drywall one. Ooh, the painting one, that's interesting. Ooh, the blueprinting one. And then they got to that attitude one, and they're like, my team doesn't need that. They're all amazing. Or they were like, that one got my attention. And isn't it interesting also, like even that one, to hear those things reinforce. And I see this all the time in my work. All of a sudden, I'm in front of some of my clients' employees. And, the way that they hear it from me and it resonates from me, when the client's like, dude, I've been saying the same thing. Why are you the one cutting through to them? Well, sometimes they need to hear it from a different authority, from a different perspective, to realize, wait a minute, what he's been saying or what she's been saying is exactly right. And here's another person saying it to it. I better step up. So even as you go through some of those courses, to hear it from another one. The other thing that got me when I was talking to Gabe, Gabe reached out to me from MT Copeland, and I kind of heard a little bit of his story, and I've always been a little bit impressed and infatuated with those master classes. And Gabe's like, I worked for Masterclass, and it's those ones with like Steve Martin, and they've got presidents on there, and it's just very well produced. Well, Gabe is coming from that background, and when you go to MT Copeland's website and you kind of look at the type of quality in the videos, I mean, look at, if you're watching this on video, I was commenting to Jordan, I'm like, dang, you got a nice setup and video and everything's crisp. It's very, very well done. So we set up, if you go to remodelersontherise.com/M as in Mary, T as in Tom, MT. I bet you if you click through that and you sign up with them, I'm probably going to get a little like money for a steak dinner or something. So it's an affiliate link, remodelersontherise.com/MT, or they could probably go to mtcopeland.com if they want to go directly through, that's fine. But remodelersontherise.com/MT. And right at the top, when I clicked it earlier, it was like 20% off your first course that you buy. Check out what Jordan and their team is doing. There's got to be something that you heard in here that was intriguing to you, that was of interest to you, whether it was a reminder on the importance of training, or whether it's like, man, I need to go get one of those courses and just pick one and start figuring out how to get this in front of my team to consume. And let's see how it goes. And let's see the impact of it and see how it feels and looks. Give it a shot. We're not talking about spending $27,000 on a course. We're talking about, 100 or two or whatever it is, to really get going and to impact the team. Jordan, what else would you say if a remodeler would be interested in chatting with you guys? Is that just go to the website, start clicking around and find a course that they like?
Yeah, go to the website. If you have any questions, you can email over at we have a corporate email thing, but just email me, just Jordan at mtcopeland.com,
Okay.
and I'll get you in touch with the right person. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We're also on Instagram, mt.copeland. You can reach out there. Lauren's super quick about replying back to DMs, and then on our website as well.
Awesome. Jordan, that was fun. If let's finish with this thought. If they heard nothing else in this podcast recording today, if there's one thing that you'd kind of want to emphasize for remodelers listening to this, what's the one thing that you'd kind of want to double down on or really emphasize that they need to hear?
Training is important. If you want to have a profitable company that is well ran, training across the board is very important. However you do it. Hopefully the video with MT Copeland is a way that you can do it. But if it's not with that, figure out some way to invest in your people, and it will pay dividends.
I like it. And then I said that was the last thing, but now I had another thing. What's one little story of, maybe it's one of your employees, but give me a quick story of the impact of training on an employee. What comes to mind?
For employees, now my mind's completely going blank. Lauren's going to be watching this, be like, "We just told you this. We just reviewed it." Yeah, no, from my own crews.
Like it.
And this is probably not what people want to hear, but it does good for me. Is I had a guy that was working for me as a still worker, and as I was able to invest in his training, where he learned more and more and more, and he was one of my top guys, and he just kept doing better, and we made a lot of money together. And then at one point he said, "You know what?" And he did it the right way. He approached me first. He didn't poach any of my jobs. But he said, "I really like this. I want to start my own business on that." And now he's out there, going through the same frustrations that that we all go through. And it's like, it's sort of, now you know what it's really like. But he's doing what his dream was of being a business owner and entrepreneurial. And I feel like part of that was my investing the time to make sure he really understood the fundamentals. And then he put in the work to make sure he really understood it. And now he's out there making an impact in the greater community.
Yeah. And yes, that's a story that some people are like, see, that's why I don't want to train them too much, because they might leave. Don't approach life and don't approach training in your business that way. To go through and have a family tree of businesses that were started because you invested and inspired people to go out and start their own thing and gain the confidence and skill. That is a beautiful legacy. Now, yes, it can be frustrating.
I will say that relationship has proven more beneficial, because he was getting, to keep good guys, you've got to start paying good money, right? So he goes off on his own. He's a small operator. He can't hire everybody that comes to him and be like, "Hey, I need a job on this." But he calls me like, "Hey, I found this great guy. I'm not there yet, but I would love for him to come work for you and have you do the exact same thing that you've done for me." So it starts a pipeline of goodwill, of people giving good references, because nobody's going to tell their buddy, "Go work for that jerk down the street that doesn't invest his people." But if you've got that reputation of investing in your crew, man, you'll get the referrals on both the work side as well as the employee side.
And doing the right thing is always the right thing, and investing in your team and building them up. Some of them are going to stick with you, some of them aren't. Sometimes the ones that aren't turn into great referral sources, come back to you after 4 years and come back a different person and want to continue to join. You never know, but doing the right thing, training people up, improving it, is beneficial, ROI positive for you now, and certainly for the employee. So awesome. Thanks so much, Jordan. That was fun. We'll talk again soon.
I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.